Welcome
Welcome
to the Saris
Saris
project. This is a project between two brothers from Finland.
Nick and me, Max. This is actually our second attempt at recording this because the first one's the mic audio didn't work. We might upload that one as well, but the audio might be a bit shittier. Well, yeah. So what is this the Saris project actually? Well, it's a podcast where the goal was to sort of talk about our experiences, inspire people, and eventually invite people who have interesting ideas that you guys might also find useful or otherwise just interesting and entertaining to listen to.
Exactly.
Yes, so that's basically the point with this podcast.
So now we'll be talking just about our journey and how we got to this point right now. Actually, our journey towards us sitting on this table talking about these subjects is a long, long one.
It's a long
and it starts
journey.
for me about 8 years ago. Now, previously, we loved playing video games. Max and I, that was all we did. We have this computer at our home. We used to share and we tracked the hours so that we each played exactly the same amount of hours. Eventually, we got two different computers and we were able to play video games as much as we wanted. For me, the video games, I took this too far. In the end, in high school, all my friends played video games and so did I. That was all I did. In school, in the breaks, I just went to the breaks and I gambled, and then I went home and I played this video game all day. And I remember in high school, an epiphany I had, or a moment of like clarity, was in 1 year, the only time I saw my friends outside of playing video games or a screen was once after school when we were watching a movie. And even that time, our free time was screen time.
So it was screen time, otherwise at home playing video games, and screen time with your friends looking at the movie.
And it feels like, in the end, yes, I love these video games, but the feeling when you close the screen after playing at like 2, 3 a.m., just play the entire night, you just close the screen, you look in the back of the screen, you just see your face there, and you'll see that you're pretty much alone in the room, everyone else is sleeping, and you feel like there must be more to life than this. And when I played a lot of video games, I did not move a lot, I did not exercise, so I got quite overweight, and I felt horrible in my body. I was just sitting down in school, sitting down at home, just playing video games. And I felt like I had to make a change. I tried working out like 1.5 years, but I saw no results. Finally, I changed a bit my diet. I started eating more vegetables, and I managed to lose a lot of weight. I went from 90 kilograms to the lowest point of 58 kilograms. I went from overweight to underweight. And this completely shifted and changed my life completely. Felt like I was like, people talked to me and acted a completely different way around me. But this was not the only thing I changed. Through this experience, I realized that it's possible to change things in your life, change how you look and how you feel. You're able to really change how happy you are, change how you feel in your body, change how you act with other people. And this created a cascading change in my life where I was able to take things in my life and improve them and be happier. And finally, this change completely shifted my life around. Not only did I change the way I looked, I changed the way I was with people. I changed my social skills. I changed how I dressed. I felt like I was a completely different person. And I tried to pick up this habit of meditation. And I was so inspired by this. And I want to touch others and help them go through similar changes. Help others make changes that make them more happier in their life. And the first person I looked at was my brother Max, and I was so desperate to try to get him onto the same train I was on.
I also had like sort of the same background, like other than like school. The only thing I really did was play video games and scroll memes on my phone. Like that was my whole existence for like after elementary school to the majority of middle school. I was just depressed. Zero social skills, didn't have any friends, didn't do anything outside of school because I was sort of the outsider. I didn't really have any like friends that I did anything with outside of school. I was sort of cool with everyone, but I had like zero friends.
So in a similar way, we love video games, but for me, I was escaping kind of the negative feelings, the bad feelings, and putting them all into video games, kind of escaping the real world and just going on to this imaginary world of Counter-Strike and other video games. And my social skills was also pretty like low. I was scared of calling a pizza at home. I had quite severe social anxiety.
And I also had a lot of social anxiety. I couldn't talk to any women or anything like that. I completely avoided them at school. I just felt nervous, especially in like party settings, just completely nervous, just like shaking and really closed up. I couldn't hold any presentations at school because I just stuttered all the time and forgot what I was going to say. And it was just really bad.
But yes, the first time I tried to get Max onto this track of changing things in your life and kind of improving yourself was I sent Max this channel called Teaching Men's Fashion.
Yeah,
And it was
because
about
my fashion
changing the
sense
way you
before
dress.
my fashion sense before this was really shit. Like I was dressing in all black, which actually is my signature look, so I still dress like that. But
Exactly.
I was like dressing in these baggy ass pants and like a black shirt every single day. I only wore that for like 2.5 years straight. It was just.
And I
it did
remember
not
after
look
this,
good.
watching this channel, Max, he bought his first jeans.
I bought my first jeans. Before this, I had never worn jeans a single time in my life. So after watching this channel, I bought my first jeans. I bought shirts that actually fit me. I started dressing nicer. And when school started after this summer, people were actually noticing. Like teachers were being like, "Yo, what the fuck?" Like I was looking completely
Like,
different.
who was that? I remember
Like,
Max telling
exactly.
me the story, and I was amazed. Like, how was this possible? But so my journey of like self improvement or changing the way I feel and growing in my life started a bit earlier than Max. But I noticed so much benefit from it. I just wanted to share it. I was especially interested in meditation. Each time I meditated, I felt like I was more calm. I was more aware of my thoughts, my emotions, my bodily sensations. And I was able to make better choices, more conscious choices in my life. I just wanted to make that a daily habit, but I struggled. It's so difficult to sit down and do nothing for 20 minutes. Even though it sounds so simple, it's one of the most difficult things to maintain every day. So I had this great idea I convinced Max to make this a challenge. To 2 weeks,
challenge.
watch one lecture or video about philosophy or psychology, and then meditate each day 20 minutes. And that's where Max's journey really took off.
And because I was extremely competitive, I couldn't say no to this challenge, of course. And I took it to the next level. Like I meditated not 20 minutes every day, but every day I meditated at least an hour. And at some periods, I even meditated hours and hours. Like at least like 2-3 hours. I had one period because after this challenge, it was so good, the benefits of it. So we ended up continuing it for 1.5 years at least.
Exactly.
And
like,
I still
it was
meditate
so
every
amazing
day.
that we thought we were just going to be 2 weeks do this. But Max was so competitive.
I was so
He
competitive that
wanted
we
to
did it for
continue. And
1.5
every day I
years
thought of quitting.
every single day.
And every time I thought I was going to quit that, I always had Max. And hey, Max is
Exactly.
still doing that. I want to continue too. And that's where Max's journey really took off.
And exactly, because of this challenge, we started it the 3rd of September 2018. And actually, what's interesting is I have a necklace that I got when we had the confirmation thing that my sister made. And this is from the same week. Like it has the initials, the 8th of September 2018. It's from the same week when we started this challenge. So that's the symbolism I have with that. And actually, with this challenge, the first day that we started it, the first day I meditated, I was contemplating during class at school, what is like reality? Like, what's the difference between that and dreams? And then I had this I had at least 5 different synchronicities. So what that is, it's like meaningful coincidences, like crazy coincidences that have some meaning behind them. So I had like 5 crazy ass coincidences that wouldn't make any sense, like if you were to like analyze this scientifically. Because before this, I was extremely like scientifically minded. Like science has all the answers to everything, physics and all that explains reality. But after this experience, I had this like this really quick like snap moment where my mind like shifted. I became the observer. I had this profound mystical state where instead of like being the main character, for example, in a movie, I became the one watching the movie. Like if you're sitting in a theater, instead of like feeling like you're the main character, you become like the one looking at the movie. So that's sort of like during class that happened for half an hour. It also came with a like intense blissful experience. Like I started feeling super happy, just smiling like a madman. People probably thought I was pretty insane. But yeah, for half an hour, I had no self. I was like, if you guys have heard the term ego death, then that was like a temporary ego death that I had for half an hour. Smiling like a madman, feeling like I'm the observer just watching like my life play out. I wasn't the one talking. I wasn't the one doing anything. So that experience, because it was the first day of this challenge, that sort of motivated me that, hey, maybe there's something more to this than what I thought before.
So other than meditation, that was maybe one of the first things that started the snowballing effect, like change and growth in our life. But another thing we really added was we started for the first time in our lives, we started reading books. This YouTube channel convinced us that reading books is one of the best ways of learning new things, finding different perspectives, and finding a way to grow more in your life. And before this, we hated books, Max.
We
right?
hated books. We argued with our dad because our dad tried to get us to read books. He even tried to pay us. He would
tried to
even pay us
10
for
euros
reading a book.
For reading one book. He thought that, please, just start reading in any way. He's even willing to pay for us to
And
read
we had
books.
this argument that why would you read a book when you can watch a movie and not just like read what's happening, but actually see it and hear it? Like it's better, right? Because you have more visuals and more things.
Yeah,
So
but
that was our
films
argument.
are always better than books. This is how I thought. And even in school, each time we had a reading project, I always end up skipping it, just reading like 1/4 of the book, just looking at Wikipedia and try to pick a movie.
Exactly.
Try to pick a book that there's a movie about, just watch the movie and make the presentation about that. But the key was that reading interesting concepts, and especially non-fiction books and philosophy books, was what.
Because we could
what,
actually
like,
see
we
the
were-
value of the books. We could actually apply the like lessons we learned from the book into our own lives.
And that would change my life so much. And I remember I was reading this book called Mastery by George Leonard. He talked about how you can either dabble in things, you can try to get to one stage and then just quit it, or you can become a master. And I remember I felt so much passion reading this book, and it felt like how is this not like taught to everyone? How is this idea of like reading books and learning from them not? How did I not realize this before this? I was walking to my job back then. I remember it was snowing in Finland, and I just walked outside and kept reading this book. I was so absorbed in it. I remember snow was falling on the book. I just could not close it. And I never felt that kind of passion from reading a book before. And it was completely revolutionary for my life. And with Max, we also kind of made this a challenge of every day reading
Every
20
day reading
pages.
20 pages.
And
minimum.
Max actually, I was reading, yes, this more general philosophy of self-help and like mastery, psychology. But Max, because he had to take it to the
I
next
had
level.
to take it to the next level. I was so competitive, so I had to beat him up to it. So my first English book that I ever read, I chose a 650-page book on non-dual philosophy. So that was pretty interesting and surprising for our parents, seeing us from not wanting to read anything at all, just being completely anti-book, to reading like complex 650-page
In English
Bible-size like philosophy books in English.
Yeah, I remember I was asking my dad like maybe 1 year ago. We were in a sauna, and I asked him what surprises him the most about his children. And he thought about it for a couple of minutes. Then he said, what surprises me the most is that Max and Nick, that we started reading books, not just any books, philosophy and non-fiction books in English. He was completely mind blown because he previously tried to pay us to read books, and now we would read them voluntarily without even a school project, and these books being completely so difficult to understand and feeling like almost work. But for us, it wasn't work.
It wasn't work because we actually enjoyed those books. But the issue that we had with this, I also had some nice mystical experiences after that. For example, one distinct one that I remember during like lunch at school, which really changed me as well. But the issue with this, like all these habits, we started feeling all these benefits and all these
Yeah.
things. So we felt like adding more things would be more benefits,
Yes,
right?
reading was not the last thing we added.
That was not the last thing.
A stretching habit and a concentration practice habit, which was just focusing on one point, for example, a candlelight or just some object, and focusing on that for 5 to 10 minutes, as hard as you can. We added some journaling habit. We had a gratitude practice habit, watching a lecture habit. And in the end, I had maybe like 3 hours every day was just planned for these daily habits. And once you feel like you have a streak in that, you don't want to quit it. And Max,
And
he took
because
it also
I,
to the
again,
next level.
was so competitive, I took it to the next level. Instead of just having meditation, which I did at least an hour every single day, and watching the videos, I also had stretching. I think I did 10 minutes, concentration practice, 10 minutes. Then I did this so-called self-inquiry, which is where you contemplate like what you are or what is the thing observing. It's also related to the observer thing. I did that 20 minutes. After that, I also had I tracked all my sleep. I tracked like 3 appreciations as well as 3 feelings of the day. I tracked exactly what I ate. I did like a journaling at least half an hour every day. And I still do that every day. So I have tracked every single day from 2018 up to this point in journaling.
But kind of, we noticed so much improvement. We felt like
We felt like adding more things would be a benefit,
and
of
yeah,
course,
we
because
felt
we
like
actually got
the
this
more you
improvement.
add, the more you improve, right? That's like it kind of made sense that when if you meditate, just that's a lot of benefits. If you had reading into that, you are learning new things. Then you did a stretching, you had a workout, you had this concentration practice, a journaling habit, and just keep
Yeah, I
adding
forgot
more and
workout.
more and more things.
That too.
And this snowball was going like further and further, but in the end, it got to the stage it couldn't like grow anymore. We were just
Because
putting more snow into it.
Here's the concept of like homeostasis or ego backlash. The more you change something in as fast, like if you change something a lot in a very short amount of time, then homeostasis is the mechanism that sort of tries to bring you back. Like for example, with your body temperature, your body tries to keep it at a certain level.
Yeah, so the homeostasis, like all change is seen as dangerous.
All change is dangerous because if
we want to
something
keep
works,
keep us alive. If we are alive, we don't want to try anything new. It's
because if
unknown.
something works, why change it?
And the problem with this one is it also impacts good things in our life. Even good changes can be seen as dangerous or because they're unknown. And that, in a way, the mechanism which is very useful for maintaining our body temperature and keeping us surviving, it can be a hindrance towards making positive changes in your life. And this is exactly what Max
This is exactly what
experienced.
I experienced because we had so much change. There's actually an equation for the amount of like backlash or the homeostasis reaction that you get. It's that the amount of change times the speed of the change equals how big the backlash is going to be. And because we changed so freaking much in such a short period of time, I had more growth in that 1 year than I had in 10 years prior to that, or in those few months than 10 years prior to that.
Basically,
So-
we changed completely how we use
changed
our free
completely.
time.
Exactly.
Completely switching it. And turns out you can't just do that without any consequences.
Exactly. We completely switched from being like depressed, just browsing our phones and playing video games, to reading books, meditating, and being social and doing all these positive things. But the amount of change and the amount of like habits that we had, it came to a stop after we had so many things. For me, at least, I started doing these habits very late at night. Like for example, at 8, 9 o'clock, when I was supposed to start heading to sleep soon, I still had all my habits, which was like 7 hours at the time. And then when you think back, you look at the time, shit, I have 7 hours of shit I gotta do. I ended up meditating very often, like at 3 a.m. I remember distinctly one time I was sitting upright with my eyes open and the lights on, and I fell asleep.
Yeah, so when we got into when you have a lot of these habits and you do them daily, you get into the routine of just doing the habits to maintain the streak.
Instead of actually doing them because you enjoy them.
Yes, that's kind of the crux of the problem. Is that when you do these beneficial habits, first you start doing them because you enjoy them.
And then you
Because
start
see,
telling
like,
yourself
feel like
you
they-
should do them
yes,
because
you feel like they add
Yeah.
something to your life. Like meditation feels like that's like really I've noticed so much benefit during that first like half year to 1 year when we did that daily. But in the end, it felt like something you just had to do just to maintain the streak of doing it like 360 days. Now you have to do it even more and
So
more.
we didn't really like recenter ourselves as to why we did it, why we wanted to do it. We just told ourselves,
Yeah.
oh, well, this is what we should do because people tell us we should
like
do
wake
that.
and like if you come home like at 3 a.m. from party, this is what I did. Still maybe a bit drunk from the night, just to sit down and meditate for 20 minutes just to get it done, very like grudgingly. That's not what
It's not
it's
good.
supposed to. That's not how you get the benefits from it. That's not
And after-
how you enjoy your life.
After a lot of like a couple months of doing this, I ended up getting some actual health problems too. I got like my head started itching from the stress of this, so I got infections and I had to be on antibiotics on and off for 8 months. So it really had a like profound impact negatively on my health as well. So you got to be very careful if you have a lot of these habits or if you make big choices or big changes in your life, because you might get these like backlash reactions to them.
Yeah, just like if you just eat nothing for 50 days, sure, you lose a lot of weight in a short amount of time. But just like Max said, the equation, if you change a lot in a short amount of time, you'll get a lot of homeostasis or backlash reaction. Most likely, you will gain the weight back and it will just come back to the same position. You have to make these changes gradually, even though in that moment when we went through this very big change, it felt like you want just to change more and more and more. And when you notice some improvement, you want to change it even more. But still, the change that I went through, maybe 3 to 4 years, it felt like I literally became 3 times happier. I increased my baseline happiness 3 times from what it was before. And it was just crazy. It goes back to this concept of the fixed mindset versus the growth mindset. Before this, I had the fixed mindset, kind of that your intelligence is fixed, your income is fixed, how you feel is fixed. nothing can be changed. It's just the way it is. Meanwhile, the growth mindset is the mindset that everything can be changed, everything can be improved. We live in a state of constant change, and the next day you can decide to be a completely different person, and you're under no obligation to stay the same person you were. Would like to say something more about that concept.
I agree with that. That if you you have to have the mindset to change, because a lot of us think that our intelligence, our happiness, if we're depressed, we feel like we are gonna be depressed forever. Or if our parents are poor, we feel like we'll be poor. We don't really leave room for change. But from our experience, at least, that's not how the world works.
Exactly.
You can always change something. You always have some degree of control over. For example, if you have terrible circumstances, you can control how you react to them circumstances. That you always have some degree of control over your situation.
And maybe that's just such an important concept, that the things in your life can be changed and they don't have to remain the same way they were. And going through this change, at least when I lost that weight, it made me realize that really anything in your life can be changed. Anything in your life can be improved upon. That's also a kind of a trap that you're supposed to change your life, meanwhile accept things how they are, be grateful for how things they are. That's still things I'm struggling with. I always see that everything can be improved, everything can be better. But still, that mindset has opened so many doors for me. It feels like anything really is possible when you have a growth mindset instead of a fixed mindset.
So yeah, then after this antibiotics time that I had, when I was on enough antibiotics, I had this really long period of backlash where I was sort of feeling lower than when I was after I just started the habits and stuff. But I still struggled a lot with the depression and the social anxiety part, because I still hadn't talked to anyone. So after middle school ended, sort of the week after high school ended, I became extremely social. I talked to everyone. I was really confident and all of this, but and I felt really much change because of this. For example, I got together with my now partner that I'm still together with, and I got a lot of new friends and all of that. So I felt like it was really big positive impact. That I don't know what really sparked the change. I think it was because I felt so lonely. I felt like I actually had to be more social to actually compensate that.
Yes, maybe I would say that reminds me of the trap of thinking that your growth or how you change, that you will completely linearly just grow.
Yeah,
everything
it might
will
just
go better
shoot up
linearly. This is
exponentially.
often not how it goes. Often you go have ups and downs, and you can't just keep a constant upwards spiral.
Yeah, exactly. Same with motivation. Motivation goes in cycles. You have high motivation peaks and then you have low motivation peaks. It never goes in a straight line.
Another big thing we went with my brother is that finally I had someone who has similar values, who thinks similarly about the world, and it motivated me so much. It's so important. Max always stresses the importance of having a community, having people who are making you feel good and are moving towards similar things. One thing, we watched these videos that really recommended this group called Toastmasters. It's a public speaking and leadership group. And I convinced my brother with another challenge.
And this was again after the summer, after the year of doing
it. Was kind of, we went to the big change. We had some backlash and homeostasis, some reaction against
in the
those
summer
change.
2019.
And then a new period of change kind of started then.
And then we decided to go to this Toastmasters group. And because my social skills were still really poor at this time, and I couldn't hold presentations because I stuttered all the time and had issues with that, it was really interesting when we went to the Toastmasters and held our speeches there. I had such growth to my confidence and my public speaking skills, for example, holding presentations and, for example, things like holding this podcast right now, that I had such growth from just one time speaking that was really crazy.
So we went to this group called Toastmasters. I convinced Max that let's go and visit it. So it's Toastmasters, they have these improvised speeches, then they have a section of prepared speeches, and then they have the final section of evaluations.
And the improvised speeches are free, so everyone can go, even when we were guests.
So we went to this event, and I remember they had improvised speeches, and they were asking if there's any volunteers by the guests. And first, I instantly raised my hand, even though I did not know what it was about. So the improvised speeches, they are called table topics. And you go on stage, and they will give you a topic, and you'll get 30 seconds to think about it.
30 seconds to think about what you say.
And then you talk 1 to 2 minutes.
1 to 2 minutes.
And I remember going there, my heart was going beating 1,000 times a minute. And I went there, I got this topic about my favorite books. And even though I knew a lot about the subject, I could not speak. I could not really get my thoughts into a proper speech. I remember I felt like it was a horrible speech, and I felt like I really kind of failed. But then I was so proud of myself that I actually went there and spoke, because often in life, yes, you can visit these groups, but you have to really take action. You have to really put yourself out there to see any growth. You have to do the things that are uncomfortable instead of just observing or thinking about things. So I remember I was looking at Max with that look that, please, yeah, I did this now, so now Max has to
And
do it.
again,
And
because I was
do.
competitive, that's what I did. I went up and held a speech. I think my topic was something about who inspires you. So that was really good. And even the thing about Toastmasters, that you actually get feedback on your speeches. For example, we got to know if we had some like grammatical errors or if we used filler words and all of that.
Yes, everyone writes like anonymous feedback to you about how your speech went, your body language, how your tonality, and the grammar you used. And it's so insanely valuable to get feedback from someone about how you speak, because this is something you never hear from. Even if you give a presentation in school, they will not tell specifically like what annoying habits you had. But in Toastmasters, that's the whole point of the event, is that to improve these skills.
Exactly. So after this, we also met a lot of wonderful people. For example, Miran, who might come to this podcast some other time. And we sort of started hanging out with these guys more. We started going to their, like we started meeting up on Sundays. And now we have a group where we meet up, like, well, we try to meet up every Sunday, but it doesn't always work out. But yeah, we meet up with these guys and we talk about things that like all of us are interested in. For example, self-improvement and the difficulties we've faced and new things we've learned or new things we've used. And yeah, that's been really important, because I feel like the community is super important to like self-improvement. Because for example, I would never have come this far without my brother. And I don't think he would have come this far without me either. Like you need that community to like have the, what's it called? The accountability, the mutual support. For example, if I feel really demotivated, I want to stop this habit, then I can look to my brother and he'll motivate me to do it. So that community is really important. And also, if you're building a house, then it's a lot easier to build that house with friends who are helping you instead of just building it yourself. And the same thing with math equations. It's a lot easier to solve it in a group with people who are interested in the same things than if you try to solve it yourself. So the community like helps build you up, and that's really important.
So after this change, it was kind of in the middle of high school that this change happened for me. And my identity was shifting so rapidly that I had no clue what I wanted to do with my life. It felt like each time I thought like, hey, this is what I'd better do, then I went through another couple of changes and growth periods. And then I had, again, no clue what I wanted to do. So in the end, I did not focus on the final exams in high school, and I performed very poorly. I was simply just not motivated. I had no clue what I wanted to do. I was quite interested in this life coaching concept, but I didn't have any practical way of achieving that. But in the military, finally it dawned upon me that this change I went through of ultimately becoming a lot happier, increasing the level of baseline happiness I was feeling, and making me feel just so much more full, so much more emotion, feeling so much more alive. I want to help others go through similar changes or inspire others to do something similar that I did. In the military, I found that, hey, all these books I've been reading, after I started reading books, I've now read about 40 to 50 books. All these books, most of them were somehow close to psychology or written by psychologists or psychiatrists. So I thought, hey, maybe psychology would be something I want to study. And finally, it dawned upon me, yes, I want to study psychology. Unfortunately, psychology is the most difficult subject to study in Finland. About like 2,700 people applied this year, and only 25 people get through the school with the entrance exams. In high school, my final exams, the grades were quite poor, so I had really no way of getting through that. I had only this entrance exam. It was only the way I could get in. So the first year I applied was 2020, then when we had this corona epidemic, and the entrance exams were shifted completely, and felt like I had a 0% chance to get in. They took like 60% less people in through the test. The second year I applied, I did my absolute best. I put everything into getting into study psychology, but again, I failed. I got through this interview with from 400 people, I got to the top 20, and then 10 people were going to get accepted. So 50% chance to get in. In this interview, I felt like I performed perfectly. I remember I was ready to open the champagne after that interview, but then I got the results that I did not get accepted. I remember calling them and asking what happened here? Why did I not get accepted? And they just said, you were too nervous, you were too goal-oriented. I was confused. How can you be too goal-oriented? You want the
And the advice they gave you for how to improve.
It was horrible.
It was horrible.
I asked them, like, what can I do to become a better applicant next year? And they said, just live. Just live. And I was so confused. I was heartbroken because I put everything into getting to this school. Finally, the last year from 2021 to 2022, I studied in Open University in Jyväskylä city in Finland, these psychology courses, and tried to get into just completing these courses. Unfortunately, I was unable to do that. And then I applied. I tried to get into study psychology in Sweden. I did 2 tests that year. I really prepared for those, but still failed. And this year I also did not get into this interview from the 400 people. I did not make it to that one. But finally, there was one test remaining. It was the Finnish schools in Finland. And I made it through from that. Like less than 1% people that get accepted. And now started studying psychology this autumn. So I had these 2 kind of quite like main periods in my life. This period of a lot of growth, a lot of internal growth from like 2016 to 2019. And then I had this second period of my life where I had to figure out what I want to do with my life. Where do I want to study? Where do I want to go? Where I tried to apply to study psychology. Eventually even understood that I want to do that to finally getting accepted this autumn. So that's what's been going around, what's happening with my life lately.
And for me,
ask for you.
After that one first period of massive change, I also realized when I started high school and became more social that what I really needed for the self-improvement thing, or what other people also might really need, is community. So I started focusing a lot about like starting different communities. Like we have a community on meetup.com called the Self-Development and Spirituality Meetup Group. We're still running that, so you guys can check it out. And other than that, we also had this meetup with the friends that I mentioned that we meet up on Sundays. I started a meetup group at school because I feel like these like communities around people who are interested in the same things is what's actually important. So also when it comes to self-improvement, I started a YouTube channel just to have this community as well, to spread interesting ideas and to help people by like giving them mutual support and all of that. So that's been kind of what's been in my focus lately. And for me, I don't feel like going to study psychology would be that good, even though it's a lot self-improvement oriented, because I feel like I really need the like freedom to choose what I study specifically and when I study and all that, like time freedom and all of that.
So what Max did is he actually lately started a YouTube channel, made like 50 videos, like really high quality videos. I recommend checking his channel out. And that's what Max has been focusing on lately.
That's what I've been focusing on lately. And I feel like instead of going to a specific place in university to study, I want to like find those concepts myself and study that. So that's kind of what I'm looking for in the future, that I'm going to pick these courses here and there and these interesting like workshops and stuff that I find, and then try to apply that to my life and speak from personal experience instead of only things that I've read.
So this is kind of the journey we've been now on. So Max, what is like the goal, or what are we trying to do with this podcast?
The goal of this podcast is, for example, to build a community, to inspire people with our experiences and other interesting people's experiences, and to give interesting ideas that you guys might find useful or might be able to apply to your life to see the same kind of growth that we did.
So we have like two different like kind of thoughts about this. We'll have some discussions with just Max and me, Nick. We will take up some concepts, maybe like AI, the recent developments in AI, meditation, and just talk about that, do some research about that.
Anything that's interesting in the moment, for example.
And then we also plan to interview some interesting people that have different thoughts, different opinions, and different life circumstances.
Yes. So other than that, we're probably going to end this episode here, and go subscribe to this channel so you can stay tuned for the next episodes. And other than that, see you guys in the next episode.